So welcome everyone. My name is Ellen Friedman. I'm here in Phoenix, Arizona, and my co-facilitator Mick Tomlinson is in Greece. And for those of you who don't know us, we actually met on a similar webinar like this. Joe Bailey and Ann Ross were hosting a webinar, and other people in this space were in there too. And I reached out to a few people in there to continue the conversation, and Mick and I have been having almost weekly, sometimes twice a week conversations for about 9 months, isn't it, Mick?
Sounds well. Even longer, I think. Even longer.
Yeah, 9 or 10 months, and began really seeing how this understanding was impacting our health personally and the clients we were working with, and we've done small groups, and we just decided to continue to share our conversation in a venue that other people could join in and participate, and where we could continue to learn more in the group and from others and from one another. Anything else you want to add?
No, just to say that, I mean, for me, there's something about the continuity that keeps me looking, as it were. And I mean, even tonight or today, I've been thinking, oh, I'm not up to doing this webinar tonight, and I'm up to, who am I to be talking about this? And there's all this personal thinking which gets in the way of just continuing the conversation. And I know it always helps. So that's what keeps me coming, if you like, even, against my personal mind ranting. I know that something will come out of this that I personally will go away with of benefit.
Yeah, I love that you're saying that, because I remember when I said, well, let's you and I do some webinars. Can I share what your response?
Please.
You said, well, I can't because I haven't had my healing yet. And I said, that's exactly why I want, because for me, this is about our experience and how this understanding of the teachings of Sydney Banks significantly changes my experience and the experience of the people that I work with around their health and well-being. And the outcome of the ultimate outcome of physical healing, I just know is between each individual soul and divine mind. But the journey between here and there can be filled with joy and fun and upliftment and wonder, and sharing that with others, regardless of any label, disease, disorder, physical state. So I'm going to begin by reading one of our favorite books, The Missing Link by Sydney Banks. And there's a whole chapter on wisdom, and it's one of the biggest chapters of the book, but just as we were preparing in our 90-second preparation for today, I said, oh, let's go to the very first chapter of The Missing Link. So I'm going to read now. One of the greatest misconceptions ever is the belief that it takes years to find wisdom. Many experience time, few experience wisdom. What does that point you to, Mick?
It sort of points me exactly to what my fears were saying, was that I have to do loads of things to get ready for this. I have to do loads of, I have to be in a different state. I have to do something that's on me that takes time. And another part of me that understands what Sid is saying Another part of me knows that it can happen just in a flash, and it could be something that someone said, you say, it could be something that Francis says, or Monica, or anyone, or something that I say that I didn't know I was going to say, can trigger. Well, it's not even that it triggers the wisdom, it triggers the space for wisdom to come through, is the way I see it. Or, as we were saying earlier, the possibility for wisdom to penetrate the personal mind, the possibility of wisdom to penetrate my sometimes thick, cloudy turbulence, whatever you want to call it. And suddenly there can be a shaft of light. And that doesn't take time.
Right. It doesn't take time. And it doesn't take effort. And it doesn't, what I really want to share right now for me is I had a big insight that it doesn't even take a quiet mind. So for so much of my exploration of the principles and hearing other teachers share, it's like, in a quiet mind, in a quiet space, wisdom is there, and our knowing is there, and the guidance is there. And I know that when I'm physically feeling crappy, or I'm exhausted, or I'm in pain, a quiet mind just seems like on a different planet. It just doesn't seem available to me. Just doesn't seem available to me. Almost seems like it just doesn't even live in the realm of possibilities for me, that I could have a quiet mind when I'm stirred up, or when I'm in pain. And then sometime about a year ago, I had immense pain, and I had terrible headache, and I was just shaking my head and like this, like, oh my, when is this going to go away? What does this mean? How come I was just wrapped up in it all. And then all of a sudden I heard, "You're just afraid." Oh, I'm just afraid right now. And then Sid Banks' quote, "If people could learn to never be afraid, if people could learn to never be afraid of their own experience, that one thing would change the world." I was like, oh, I'm just afraid right now. And then my body guided me to do something. Maybe it was take a deep breath. Maybe it was just the awareness of that fear. And the 7 out of 10 headache went to a 3 out of 10 headache instantly. And stayed until the headache went away. It was extraordinary to have the experience of an insight in the midst of an experience that I would have labeled as pain and suffering. And it was like, I want people to know that. I wanted people to know that a quiet mind is not a prerequisite for wisdom.
And when I'm hearing it again, I'm again reminded that it's not on us to get that wisdom. It's like the wisdom broke through.
Yeah. The wisdom broke through. It's not on us to quiet the mind. It's not on us to slow the mind. It's not on us to find the insight. Yeah. So let's take a pause and welcome Jennifer in the room, and just see if there's anything that anyone wants to share, or something they're hearing, or a question they have. Because for Mick and I, we have our conversations ourselves often. So we're interested in having more of a conversation with all of you.
And if anything struck you about that paragraph from Sid or anything.
Yeah.
And you can go ahead and unmute yourself, or again, as Ellen said, if you don't want to voice the question, it can be put in the chat box.
Hi, it's Monica.
Hi, Monica.
I'm just getting I've been sort of uncomfortable this morning, but it's sort of like not holding on. I guess it's like being in the real moment is what you're both talking about. Like, even you're not wanting to do the group this morning, but you flash past that. I almost thought of not doing my art classes anymore, but something hit me. These two people were talking about, it was like going into a meditative state of mind through drawing. And I went, what? So it woke me up to, oh, it is valuable. And I've started to do the drawing in the class with them, which is because then it keeps me kind of being kind of there. And even Ellen, when you talked about fear, like even this morning, I had difficulty in moving. But if I hold my breath and don't move, that's the tricky part. I guess it's like being in the moment, sort of, and breathing, saying it's okay, and experiencing the experience as it's okay. But everything we're kind of getting, I think, supports us to what you're doing and what we're learning is a lot of new learning to be able to experience an experience as okay, like maybe all the time, every day, every moment, there's some sort of, even with my husband, I'm trying to express more loving, being more relaxed with him, even if I'm in pain, because I usually get grouchy. So those are learning of shifting, because then he's kinder. So glad to be here. Thanks.
Yeah. I love what you're saying, Monica. And, the first thing that you said about, you woke up in pain, it's like when we wake up in pain or when we have pain, it can be all encompassing. It can just take over our whole world in the moment. And the idea that we're either in our pain or we're in the moment or we're in the room or we're in our life. And so what I heard you say, Monica, is like, even though you woke up in pain, like the pain shifted from the foreground of your experience, the focus of your experience, to the background. You're like, okay, I'm going to move. I'm going to move through my day. I'm going to continue teaching my art class. I'm going to participate in the art class. Is that reflective of what you were sharing, Monica? I know, because I was putting a lot of my own words on it.
Oh, yeah. It's like we're all kind of doing the same thing. That's why we can easily reflect back and forth and not be alone in, let's call it suffering. And that softens it a bit, that you're not alone. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's an okay. Yeah, and then each person learns what works. Even like Mick saying that you thought, oh, why should he do it? But he discarded that, eh? It's that, I guess it's thought. And I have a memory about Elsie when she had her experience. She told about having an insight about thought. She was angry. Which goes back to you saying we don't have to have a quiet mind. That's where she had her her first experience of the understanding that it was her thought creating her experience. So she said, you don't have to be in a quiet mind. I was extremely angry when that happened.
Were you with her when that happened?
Oh no, I just heard it. You know, I just listened to tapes off and on at different times. And just the other day, I heard that and I thought, oh yeah, because I kept thinking, she repeats the same story over and over and over. How come she can get away with that? And be where she is and use the same old story. So
well, it sounds like it's effective. You've probably heard it over and over. You've probably listened to more tapes than any of us in the room here. And you've probably...
Oh, maybe, I don't know, but it is valuable, you know, because he does take us in the tapes is really valuable because he does, you know, he always said he couldn't put it in words. So his presence there and talking. Well, I got this the other day. I think it was Christian when she visited me. She was kind of thought, well, why aren't y'all excited about having, you know, being in the presence of Sid? And I said, well, it's not that. It's just, it's like it's a journey and it's learning. But when she asked me that, later on I went, oh, when he was talking to us, he was talking to the space within us, trying to wake it up. Like he knew it was there. We didn't know it was there. But, you know, he'd just say, well, I just keep talking. It's not in the words, and it's in the feeling. And, of course, if you listen to him, you feel better. You know, but that was just in order not, I didn't know how that happened. I had no huge insights. I just felt better and was drawn to keep listening in that I don't know and keep listening. And, you know, that's just it. So it's valuable to listen to his tapes, you know, if people want to. It's sort of, it kind of can take you to immediate feeling better. You sort of drop stuff. Well, you don't, they're not even there anymore because you're somewhere else, I guess.
What I'm really hearing you say is that the formless understanding shifts the feeling inside of us.
Yeah. Give it a chance. Everyone, give it a chance. Let the door open. Let it in. You know, even if resisting and even in pain, you know, like just kind of let the door open. Like there's a possibility that this experience might be valuable even. I don't even push possibly. Yeah, why not?
I love that, Monica. I really love it. I love the give it a chance. Because that's very much what I was feeling today, was that I'm looking in the wrong direction for something that I don't even know what it is. But there's some little spark in me that wants to give it a chance. Some little spark that wants to give something outside of my humdrum thinking or my humdrum habits or my humdrum, you know, if I'm getting caught in my making meaning of my symptoms or making meaning of my pain or my discomfort, or, you know, it's very easy for me to make meaning of that. And then that meaning becomes real. You know, that meaning becomes, like Alan's saying about the foreground, that becomes my reality. But no, I just love that. Give it a chance, because that's it. It's pointing to the possibility that there's something else, which is the realm of to me.
As you were sharing, Mick, I was reflecting this morning. I woke up with a low level of symptoms that I've been having, you know, on and off for a couple years. And it just was like, oh, well, like I had a knowing that it was going to pass. I had gratitude that it wasn't intense. And now I'm remembering, that I used to get really caught up in it, like, oh my gosh, how long, what does this mean? What do I need to do? Like, and before I even got out of bed, it had passed. Nick, do you want to read the chat?
Okay. So someone wanted to share. Hi, I'm quite new at this, so I don't want to be very active here, but I would like to share my first experience with wisdom. I was in a really unhealthy relationship 20 years ago. I remember an evening when I was in a lot of pain, standing in the bathroom trying to cry as quietly as I could, so my husband wouldn't hear me. I remember feeling I'm all alone and a kind of clear voice in my head saying, "But you are not alone." I remember I suddenly felt strangely calm, and I felt so much stronger. Later, I got out of the relationship, but it wasn't until recently I discovered 3 principles and understood that it was wisdom I heard that dreadful evening for the first time. Now I am in a completely different place, feeling grateful for everything, including that experience.
Wow, I'm so touched by that. It's so beautiful. And it's just a demonstration that the principles are always working. And then we learn something and become aware of, oh, that's what happened.
And I'm struck by that was the first time you heard wisdom, but which I don't actually believe. It's the first time you're conscious of hearing it, maybe, or in the way that it's talked about sometimes in the 3 principles. But I mean, wisdom is always guiding us. From day one on this planet.
And Ellen, I so respect excuse me, I'm sorry that I shared your name. I apologize. I so respect everyone's experience and how long someone's been introduced to this understanding, for me, has nothing to do with the value of anything that they have to share. And again, I apologize for speaking your name when I said that we wouldn't do that.
And yeah, for me,
thank you for telling me it's okay.
I mean, there's something that, I mean, which goes back to what Monica was saying as well, that about the humanness that we're all facing or experiencing or going through. And what struck me about the 3 principles when I first came across it was how it's not something you learn. It's not something that you gather wisdom. You don't gather it. This is just a statement of how human beings work or how life works. And it's universal. And, we all have the universal experiences. We go up and down. We suffer. And this doesn't get us away from it, but it shows us how it's working. And from seeing that, we navigate differently.
Yeah, and for me, that also just directly changes my experience.
Yeah.
When I see something new, it's like it takes me on another rung of the ladder of consciousness, and I just have a more of a bird's eye view of life. And yeah, I mean, when you were sharing that happened 20 years ago, a few memories came into my awareness about experiences that I had 20 years ago. My daughter was in the room sharing space and had enough. So, of different experiences in my life where I saw wisdom acting in spite of it all. So thank you. Anyone else?
And we have Jennifer has raised her hand.
Oh, thank you.
Hi there. Sorry I missed the beginning. I don't know if you all can relate to this, but I've had so many experiences since my grounding in the three principles of that deeper wisdom with the capital W. And now it's almost like can I swear?
Yes.
I'm in a mind fuck with like I'm working through a viral condition, and what I eat, I really feel what I eat. And I'm watching how my mind just goes crazy with, is this my wisdom? Is this my wisdom telling me to eat this? Or no, maybe it's not my wisdom. And I'm seeing how much suffering is happening as a result of this obsessive, I don't know if this is my wisdom or not my wisdom. Well, wait a minute, I ate that the other day, but today it's affecting me. I don't know, and it's just like, it's just driving me crazy. And I have a friend staying with me right now and my husband. And you should see the stuff they eat, and they're thriving. Like they're eating GMO, and I mean wine every night, and I just don't understand. So I'm suspicious right now of just this whole part of me around my choices with food and alcohol, and how much of that is just made up stuff.
No, I can.
Go ahead.
No, a couple of things come to mind. I mean, one of them is I don't know if you know about Anita Moorjani.
Mm-hmm. I actually went to see her this fall.
Well,
she and I were in the class together.
Oh, lovely, beautiful. Now I remember reading her story and how prior to her experience, she was very, very hung up on eating the right things, precisely the right things, and living the right way, and so on. And all of that came, from what she said. All of that came to nothing when it came to it, because there was something else behind it, which was, acute fear in her, or chronic fear in her case. I mean, that's one of the things that comes to mind. And the thing
her teaching around you can eat out of love for your body. You can choose foods to eat out of love for your body or out of fear for disease. And the difference is just, and in my experience, the fear of disease can be so sneaky. Like it can be like, oh, I'm doing this out of love for my body, but it can get really sneaky how that fear hides out. Like under the radar. But I also heard your question around, like, how do I know what wisdom is? Is that a question for you?
I know what wisdom feels like. It just feels different. It lands different in my body, but it's more of okay, so I can feel the difference of when I'm just in a lot of really busy thinking, and then I'm not really having clarity around food choices or things. And I don't know, I'm even suspicious of that. Like, what if that's still wisdom peeking through and I just can't see it? I think the best I can see right now is that I just get a lot of really busy thinking, and I have a lot of concepts around what's good and bad around food. And even like I tried to Anita Moorjani myself. Okay, well, every time I eat, I'm going to make sure I'm coming from love. You know what I mean? Like, all I can say right now is that I can see a lot what isn't wisdom. And I don't even know if that's just me making up too much thought around it too. It's all feeling very exhausting.
Exhausting was the word that came to my mind too.
Yeah, and no coincidence. With the virus I have, I was debilitated with fatigue yesterday. Like, and maybe this is my wisdom coming through, just wearing me out to the point that I'm like, screw it. I'm just not going to listen to my thought anymore.
I had an experience the other day where, with my particular health condition, hot baths really exhaust me. Either being in a very hot climate, in full sun, I will get exhausted very quickly, and also hot baths do the same thing. So I have to recover for about half an hour after a hot bath. And since we lived in Greece, I haven't had a hot bath for probably 10 years, until 2 days ago. I was, for whatever reason, it was about 6 o'clock at night and my legs were cold, and I thought, I'm going to have a hot bath. And we'd been discussing getting rid of the bath and just having a built-in shower. And for whatever reason, I really, really fancied a hot bath, and it was completely unthought. It was just blissful. It was, and so nostalgic. And when I was telling Jill about it, my wife, about it later, because she was out at the time, she said, well, if you know it's going to be bad for you, or you know it's going to exhaust you, why did you have one? And that just, the question didn't compute. There was something that it was just obvious to take a bath, regardless of the consequences. And maybe the consequences of lying down half an hour afterwards was part of the whole package that I needed in the moment. I don't know. But the two things, there was the blissful nostalgia of the bath, and the recovery afterwards was just a full. And that definitely didn't come from me. There's no way I would have chosen, if I'd been thinking about having a bath or not having a bath.
And that reminds me that when we do things for an outcome, when we do things for an outcome and we don't have the outcome, it's so easy to so easy to say, oh well, wisdom couldn't have guided me to do that. I woke up very clear about last March. It was like, okay, this is what I need to do. The next step on my journey of health. It was so clear. It was wisdom. And then all of a sudden, I'm in this treatment, doing these things, feeling horrible, feeling absolutely horrible, still doing it. And then I get clear, time, a couple months later, time to go in a different direction. But I didn't make what I did wrong. It was just like, I was just still following wisdom. Make sense? Was that? Yeah, Francis.
I just completely empathize with that thing of the mind fuck of particularly with cancer, of everything coming at you from everywhere about diet and about, and it's just, you just get completely marred in it. And, and that Anita Moorjani thing of looking back, that she didn't, now, why didn't I allow myself to have these things? Now she can allow herself, or she could have then, she feels, I think is what she was saying. She could have had the ice cream and not deny herself all these things. And I'm just finding I am denying myself so much, and then I said, My son was actually saying to me there recently, "You're starting to be afraid to eat." You know, so it's just. And then at another stage, I was out visiting my daughter in England, and we were having a meal, and I had a dessert, and she was so delighted that I had dessert. You know, she's saying, "Oh, that," you know. So there's so much around it, you know. And I don't know where. Again, I just wisdom. I find it hard to listen to wisdom, I suppose is what I'm saying as well.
You find it hard to listen to wisdom. Is that what you said?
I think that, yeah. I suppose that is what I said, but it's I mean, sometimes I think, why don't I just forget about everything and just eat normally? You know, it's just.
Well, wouldn't that be nice if we could all just forget about our own personal thoughts?
Yeah.
Well, I love that question. I wonder what that would be like if we really did just forget about everything, all of our concepts, and we just ate. And that's what I'm really wrestling with right now. I have so much nutritional information in my head around what cures viruses, and now it's to my demise, where I just feel anxious all the time when I'm eating, and if we go out. And I had dessert the other night, and it was so delicious. I even had the second piece. Oh my God, right? And then I was curious the next day of how much am I actually feeling the food, or how much am I just feeling my thinking around having it? Because I was craving sugar the next day, and we'll see, it triggered the sugar, and now I want, you know, and I don't know, I'm just really suspicious of it. I don't have an answer, but it is very curious to me how much thought I have around food right now, and what's right or wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard the word. Go ahead, Frances.
No, I was just going to say, I think that really awakens in me, maybe just to be a little bit more aware, literally, when I'm eating, just to listen and see what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, and that listening will guide you into a hot bath sometimes, or sometimes not. It'll guide you to dessert sometimes, and sometimes not. And so that feeling, that connection with wisdom, with divine mind, that's something, when I live in that knowing and that flow, I'm feeling like I'm traversing down a windy river. Like, that's what feels good for me. But when I have cure at C-U-R-E, cure at the end of the river, it is a very windy, you know, there's no cure for life. There's no cure for life.
What I heard when you were saying that, winding down coming down the river, I just almost like there's a concept of cure on the opposite side of the river, and we're going through a rough patch, and we're desperately trying to swim towards the signpost, which is cure, and all the while the river is just wanting to take us somewhere else. So it's not surprising it's hard and exhausting
and causing conflict.
And
then stirring up all the neurotransmitters and hormones in our body that interfere with the body's healing process. And again, not to avoid that, because we want to not, like, I've worked with people who've been so afraid of fear because it releases, because it interferes with healing. So It's like, we can't, they're like, they'll do anything to, oh, I can't go there. But it's like, we don't have to swim in it, but it is a normal part of life that just passes through, especially when we're healing viruses, especially when we're healing terminal diseases, especially when we're just in pain and want a different experience. And for me, it's just, I get so curious about how masterful my personal mind is in trying to in thinking that it's in control, that it has the answers, that the healing is on it. Fascinating to me. It's like, wow, you are so clever today, how you're showing up in my life. That's my version of it.
I think I'm just waking up to the fact of how clever my mind is, how subtly overruling it. No, I used to think I had quite a quiet mind. I think I'm just realizing it's anything but. It's just developed lots of strategies for being seemingly quiet. Mm.
What else? Go ahead, Frances.
Just when we get back to the story of what you knew 20 years ago, there was a time when I used to write a diary. If I was, going through a particularly bad time, all the thoughts would go down, and then I would allow my mind to quiet, and this other voice would start writing quieter, nicer things to me. And when I'd read it, it wouldn't make sense, but maybe a week later I'd look at it, it made more sense. I stopped doing that, but then I found one of these diaries recently, and what I found extraordinary was that what it was saying to me then, I now understand. And I sometimes feel I'd like to get back into that now. Maybe if I write now, I get the answers, but that's not the same anymore either.
Yeah, do you see that, Frances? Like, do you see that? Like, I want to do that again so I can have
Yeah, but it's not. Yeah, it's different.
I love that you said, well, it's different now. It's not. That's not where the answers are, and that might just be for this moment.
But I suppose what I did point out is that it's always there. That's the point. And it always has been there in some guise or some form.
That's so beautiful. It's all like that, knowing that it's always been there. Except for when we're looking for it. Or it seems to be. Except for when we need the answer now. Except for when we want the guidance now.
Whereas now I see it's so much more subtle. It's almost, it's happening way there, somewhere in the background, and it creeps in occasionally.
Is there an example of that you would like to share with us?
Not really, no. It's just a generalized sort of. Yeah, no, I can't specifically say.
So am I hearing you say, like, there's a formlessness that you're experiencing that's guiding you, and you can't even put, like,
Exactly.
putting
Exactly.
words on it is putting form on it. And
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
Yeah.
what an example of Sid's teachings.
Actually, there's one thing about Sid's teachings which I sometimes he has a paragraph or a page on positive and negative thinking or something. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it always throws me a bit. Do you know which one it is? Or?
Yeah.
I know, I don't know where it is, but I know the one you're relating to.
It's under thought. It's in the thought chapter. Let me see if I can. I think it's in. Yeah. No, that's listen for a positive feeling. Listen for a positive feeling. Positive feelings will bring you the answers you seek. Delving into the workings of your ego won't. That's not the one you were talking about, but that was an example of what you were just sharing, and kind of reflective of what Jennifer was struggling with, feeling. Like, sounds like wisdom, feels like wisdom. Is there something else from the wisdom chapter that you want to read, Mick?
Yes, but Jennifer raised her hand again. So.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Thanks for monitoring that.
Yeah, I just wanted to share one of the things that I'm seeing right now around wisdom is how I have it set up to hurt me. I have it set up as a destination thing. Like, oh, I got to get there. Oh, I'm not there. Judgment. I'm not in my wisdom. You know what I mean? Like, I see how it's almost creating this constant state of anxiety of, I don't feel my wisdom right now. I'm lost, and I don't know. I just get derailed from it, and it's opening up my own wisdom, seeing that maybe that's just a made up thing too, right? Like, what if everything I do, getting in a bath and potentially harming myself from it, what if that's wisdom? That's just a new thing for me to see, right?
I really relate to that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I thought, like, well, wisdom would only guide me to healing. Wisdom would only guide me to cure. Wisdom would only guide me to what I'm laughing right now. What I want, what the personal mind wants, rather than wisdom's just guiding and I'm just following. Thank you, Jen.
But the paragraph that I was thinking of was our intellect and our inner wisdom should work together to create harmony in our lives. However, if the intellect lacks wisdom, chaos reigns. This is the state of the world today. Those who have found a balance between their intelligence and their innate wisdom are the lucky ones.
Yeah. We can all relate to that in our personal lives and the world. The first chapter of this, the first paragraph in the wisdom chapter is so beautiful. Spiritual wisdom lies within the consciousness of all living creatures. It is formless. The second it is revealed to a human soul, it is taken on a form that can only represent its true nature. It just sounds so much like what Francis was saying. It's formless, and as soon as it's revealed, it takes on form. Any comments on? Just go ahead and unmute yourself if you have anything you want to share, since we're a smaller group. Another one of my favorite lines from this chapter is, to find wisdom, elevate your consciousness. Seek a grateful feeling for what you have already have in life. Like how gratitude elevates our consciousness. And we look in that direction. It's another direction to find wisdom.
And again, like we've been saying, it's so easy to then make that a doing. So easy to, oh, I've got to be grateful. And it's not what is being said, I believe.
That's exactly what I was immediately came to mind too, that, oh no, but that's a doing. And I can't see it. I can't see it being outside of a doing. I can see, no, I can't see it actually. It's the one I struggle with. Yeah.
To me, it's like the, a plant growing towards the light, in the sense that I know when I'm going towards the feeling of gratefulness has a particular feeling that to me is expansive, or expansive is the best word I can think of right now. And I know when I'm pointing away from that and I'm pointing towards things not being okay, things not being good enough, things not being fair, I'm a victim or whatever, it is kind of the polar opposite of gratefulness. And I can feel that one has an openness to possibility. So it's not so much, for me, it's not so much a doing, it's a knowing that in the feeling, one has possibility and one doesn't. Does that make any sense, Brad?
Yeah, I think so. I think it goes to that subtlety again, that it just comes to you. Gratefulness. It's not. You just suddenly find. Yeah, it just comes to you rather than anything else, I think. But not doing the 5 gratitude things a day or whatever.
Not as a prescription.
No.
For an outcome, yeah. So as we wrap up, any final words of wisdom?
I'm having sort of memories lately of, like, I have a lot of judgments on stuff I've done, but I had this memory of when I left Montreal, and I sort of was a nurse, and I sort of dropped out, and my whole life sort of switched in the late 60s. But then and it's sort of against sort of the way my family, or I should have done my life, okay? So then I also had a memory at the same time. I was getting into art, and I was going to study with Arthur Lismer on teaching art to children. So it hit me. Well, those are 2 different stories, I can have judgment on the one that I wasn't doing according to protocol or how I should, live my life. And then I thought, well, I still was. I just decided not to do that one. I don't know, but it sort of lifted my consciousness a little bit about my own self-image and giving myself a little more permission just to be who I was, or whatever. Because that they come from a family with quite different. Well, I don't know that, right? I'm trying to even be open to that expanding, because that's my thoughts about them as well, what they might be thinking about me. I mean, it's ridiculous how carrying all this stuff on. So, being in the feeling allows, I think, for me to have better rapport. That's about it.
Well, I'd like to finish with reading a few of Sid's words about wisdom from the wisdom chapter. Wisdom is impersonal. Wisdom is immortal and unchangeable. Wisdom is the path to all spiritual understanding. Wisdom is also the path to all psychological understanding.
Thanks. I got goose pimples.
Yeah, thank you all for joining us and sharing in the conversation. And Mick and I are available together and individually if you want to share any new thoughts or insights or wisdom that comes along. And there's a Facebook page, Three Principles Healing and Health and Healing, where we're posting the replays of the videos, as well as this one didn't get recorded. As well as future events. So stay tuned for what we're going to do in March.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Nothing from me. Sid, shut me up.
Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye. Thank you all. Bye-bye for now.